I'm sitting here thinking back to the Oregon Trail game. You died of dysentery. Okay, how many people died from dysentery in those games? It happened all the time, right? Little Timmy died from dysentery. Oh no, you know.
This video is brought to you by Fallen Dominion Studios. Check out their website at fallendominionstudios.com. Howdy there, partner. Welcome back to the Dice Odyssey. And today, you're going to be getting yourself a team together of hardy town folk. You're going to be getting all sorts of different kinds of cattle and wagons and medicine and food and gear and resources to help you survive the dangers of all types, including things like dysentery, things like storms and robbers and all sorts of fun little things in Oregon Trail. Pioneer Days. This is by Tasty Minstrel Games, designed by Matthew Dunstan and Chris Marling. It's for 2 to 4 players, about 45 to maybe 75 minutes depending on player count, and it's for 14 up. Basically, you're going to be doing a lot of dice drafting in this game. Like I said, you're going to be gathering resources and all sorts of fun stuff. Let me get you over to the table real quick. I'm going to show you a little bit of a game overview and how it's played, and then I'm going to get you back to my final thoughts. Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. I'm going to cover as much as I can to at least get you started and going and understanding somewhat. Number one, you're going to have different kinds of player boards here. You got Scarlet the Gambler. Each one of them is going to have a variable player power. After selecting a die, you may re-roll it once. If you do, gain 1 silver. And they also tell you what starting resources from large wagon, cattle, a pile of gold, or at least 1 gold token, and a mystery thing, equipment from the general store. That's pretty cool. But if you look, you flip it, she turns into the standard pioneer. One of your townsfolk is immune to disease, and the starting resources are going to be the same on each standard pioneer that you pull out of the deck. So, for example, large wagon, 1 block of wood, 1 medicine, 1 cattle, and 3 tokens. But just to give you an idea of a few more, Jake the Prospector. Whenever you draw gold tokens, draw 1 more gold token, then discard any 1 gold token. And as you can see, some of the starting resources are going to be different than Scarlet's. Also, some things of note on your player board, you've got the equipment list. So whenever you get one of these tokens, which I'm about to zoom in on here a moment, it tells you what that token does, what ability it grants you, and basically this is part of your engine building in a way, okay? As you go throughout the game, you're going to be able to have the possibility of gaining more equipment as you go from the general store. We'll get into that here in just a moment. But as you can see, on some of the equipment, you're going to have little symbols at the top left corner that are white, okay? That represents whatever is actually on the die that you roll. Now that's going to be a wild symbol. That's not going to be on any of these, and also the equip symbol is not going to be on any of these, because that is actually what helps get you some of this stuff to begin with. But as you see, you've got a medicine symbol, a wood symbol, a pickaxe for gold, and a cattle. Well, if you look, you got a pickaxe, medicine, wood, and cattle. Now each one of these, you see there's 4 of them, so the cool thing is if you had 2 of these, and those symbols, like for example, let's say the wood and the cattle, if they ever kept on rolling on your turn, these would activate and gain you resources or bonuses, abilities, and things like that. So these other ones over here are specialty items that grant you, passive abilities and protections and things like that. For example, now what you're going to do with these different card decks, you've got A, B, C, D, and E. You're going to take 2 of them, you're going to shuffle them together and form your townsfolk deck, and then you're going to place them out here. Now just to give you an idea of what these townsfolk can do. These townsfolk serve several different purposes. First off, they have different special abilities. If you see this symbol, that basically means this is an ongoing ability that can continually be used. If you see this symbol, that means it's a one-time thing, okay? For example, this one says add 1 new equipment to the store, then take 1 equipment from the store, okay? And that's talking about the general store. Also at the bottom you see the 1 victory point per equipment. So you see it kind of works within his power. The way this works is even if though you use this 1 time, you can actually still use this for in-game scoring. If you can keep this guy alive to the end of the game, he'll help you get more victory points depending on how much equipment you have. Now, each card deck is going to have all sorts of different kinds of strengths and weaknesses, so to speak. The E deck is going to be what we would call the chaotic deck. Okay, for example, a lot of these cards are this way: roll a die, and you can lose a favor if you roll certain things. You gain a favor, gain 2 favors, 1 victory point per word of medicine. Again, there's a bunch of them like this. There's very few that aren't. But like I say, this is the chaotic deck, so it's really up to you if you want to hit the lottery in that way and push your luck a lot. Okay, so right now I've got the game set up for a 2-player game. This is going to be your main board, and then you've got your victory point tracker over here, which is your map. Okay, and it's also got the spots for where your dice are going to go when you've actually drafted them. You're going to set up the general store like this with 3 piles, all face down, and then you're going to put, because for a 2-player game, you're going to put 2 general store items, 1 for each player, and then +1. Same goes for the dice. You're going to put 3 sets of dice in the black dice bag here, because it's 2, 1 per each player, 1 set per each player, and then +1. Also of note, you do have a gold bag in this game that keeps all your gold tokens, and your gold tokens are going to look like this. They have several 1 nugget, 2 nugget, and 3 nugget denominations. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's in there as well. At the end of each week, you're going to go, once all the dice have been rolled and drafted and such, you're going to stop in different towns, and different towns are going to have different things that they need, and they might need your resources if you have them. For example, one says, if you have 3 silver, 1 cattle, and 1 gold token that you'll give to this town, basically you discard, you get 4 favor points. 4 favor, I'm sorry. And that'll get you 8 points right there, because for every favor you get, it's 2 victory points. For example, another town says, hey, I need 2 wood. If you give me the 2 wood, discard the 2 wood, you get 2 favor. These are awesome because every player at the table has a chance to fulfill this. It's not just one player fulfills it and takes it. So everybody has a chance to do that. But again, it's, you're going to be sacrificing. So at the end of each player's turn, whatever colored die has not been drafted by a player, because there's always going to be 1 left over, that color will advance 1 on the disaster track until it gets to one of these 4 spots. All right, so for example, if the green got here, disease would hit. You must pay 1 medicine for each townsfolk. Those you cannot pay for are discarded. They die of dysentery, basically. Famine, you must pay 1 silver for each cattle. Same thing happens to them. Raid, meaning robbers, you must lose half of your silver rounded up. Oh boy, that's why you buy a gun to defend yourself. Second Amendment, right? Storms, you must pay 1 wood for each wagon. Place a damage token on each one you cannot pay for. So that's what you have the wood for. So, and don't forget that black die, which is the spawn of Satan. Every time somebody does not draft that black die and it's left out there on its own, it moves every single one of these up 1. Okay, it is devastating. So somebody at times is going to have to fall on the sword and take the darn thing. Now, just to give you an idea of what a typical turn will look like, you draw from the dice bag on your turn. You draw, like I said, according to player count. In this case, it's a 2-player game, so 2 + 1. I'm going to draw 3, and I'm going to roll them. So in this case, I've got a cattle head, I've got a wood, and I've got a wild, okay? Now, I can choose to go ahead and take that wild if I want to, but for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and take the wood, okay? Now, let's take a look. First thing that's going to happen is I'm going to take a look at my player board. Remember, I took the wood. I've got my big wagon here, which, by the way, you can have small wagons or big wagons. You basically have to pay $5 to get a small wagon, which holds less space, right? Or $8 to get a large wagon. And now we see if anything fired or activated. Keep in mind, I took the wood. Oh, I've got something here that has a wood on it. Does this fire? Yes, it does. And this gets me +1 gold token, which I would draw from the bag and put it in my pile here. I'm not going to do that now, but just to give you an idea. A couple of things to note on this wagon. If you notice, the equipment and gold, they all take up 1 slot on the wagon. The wood and the medicine, the only things in the game that can actually take up 2 slots. Money doesn't take up a slot, it just stays to the side. I then can go, if I wanted to, and I could pay 3 coins to change that die face to anything else that I might need, okay? So the first thing you got to do is activate, then you have the option of changing the die face if you want, and then you can use the die in one of 3 ways. You can take income, which means take silver. You can take an action, which is the action on the die, which is represented in there. And then also you can recruit, meaning hire a townsfolk. And once you've done one of these three things, you then discard the die over here to the appropriately colored spot on this victory point tracker here. How I would use this for incomes, I would look on the main board here and take a look at these different facings here, okay? I happen to have the wood face, which matches this right here, and right above that is $5. Now, I can go ahead and take that $5 if I want to, if I decided to use it for that, and then the die would be used. The second thing that I can do is I can actually use the ability that's on the die already. That allows me to take at least one wood from the stock. And like I said, each die face will allow you to do different things. For example, equip will allow me to take one thing from the general store, which is pretty amazing. Another thing, I can actually use a wild, and I can actually take any other dice actions that are listed here, okay, on here. A third thing that I can do is I can actually go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and hire townsfolk. So for example, as it shows that I have the wood here, you're going to look here under wood, and hey, by the way, I got the Dashing Cowboy suite. Then you go ahead and do whatever it says on that card. Okay, if it's an immediate action, you take it. If it's continuous action, you just read what it says. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's pretend somebody actually did fall on the sword and take the black die, okay? And all that is left is this wonderful yellow die. Because the yellow die is left, the yellow disaster track is going to move. Uh-oh, famine's coming up. And pretty much you're going to go round after round after round, playing in this way, rolling the dice, taking the actions, trying to keep your people alive, trying to prepare for all the disasters that could possibly hit, fulfilling town needs at the end of each round or week. And person with the most victory points at the end of the game ultimately wins.
So what I think of Pioneer Days? Well, if you've ever played Oregon Trail back on the computer back in school, and we should have been listening to our teachers and doing homework. Not really, we should have been playing that game. If you've ever played that kind of game, this game has that theme and that feel in spades, okay? I'm going to go out and tell you right now, this is one of the best games I've played this year. Bar none. It has that Oregon Trail style theme. Heck, it says it on the box. You're on the hardy Oregon Trail, or whatever it says, the perilous Oregon Trail. You're building up a party of people just like you would in the game. You're gathering resources. You're trying to keep your food, trying to keep your food up, your medicine up, your equipment. You've got to prepare for all these different kinds of dangers that are coming your way. In terms of theme, in spades. Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, several things when it comes to production quality. Production quality is absolutely aces, okay? Ace of spades, a full house on a poker hand, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, I'm getting my old Western theme. I'm thinking Tombstone right now. But anyway, this game hits all the right cylinders when it comes to production quality. It's got some wood pieces. It's got really nice thick tokens, wonderful boards, very thick, thick player boards. I love the fact that I can be all sorts of different kinds of players. They've got all sorts of different kind of characters in the game with different variable player powers. Like I say, production quality is amazing. Really, really, really like having these bags to draw dice and other things out of. I absolutely love these dice. I'm a sucker for custom dice as it is, and the fact that these are all custom but multicolored, right? And I just don't know, they just kind of pop off the board, to me. When you roll them, they feel great. I just love dice. So right there, that's high marks for me. Another thing, I do love all the wooden pieces. Tasty Minstrel Games really went all out in terms of everything they did for production quality. I am extraordinarily happy about this. The cards feel great. I do kind of wish the cards could have been a little bigger just to be able to see them better, but other than that, it's a minor quibble. The other thing, I will say another minor quibble, I kind of wish these carts, the point trackers, I wish they could have been more differentiated in color, because at times we were losing track of who was who on the board. And I get it, they didn't want to mix it in with your the dice and all that other stuff. I get that, but at the same time, I kind of wish these could have been more strikingly different from each other, and they kind of blend in with the point tracker board. Also, the point tracker board can be a tiny bit confusing, but I liked the thematic flair of how it was like a map, and I really, really enjoyed that. So again, awesome all around. Love the production quality. The mechanics. Loved the dice drafting in this game. I like the idea that when I'm drawing on my turn, I can draw dice according to how many players at the table, and there's always going to be one left over. Of course, that goes to player count. There's always going to be one left over that somebody doesn't take, and that disaster track is constantly on the move, so you have to be watching that thing like a hawk, because whatever somebody doesn't take, according to that color, right, or the black die. Oh my gosh, that black die! Oh, the thing it was like the spawn of Satan. Every time we had to see it out there, it was hitting everything. But every time you don't take a certain color, that specific disaster is going to move up until it hits you, whether it's storms, raid, famine, or disease, right? And you're going to take the penalty for it if you're not prepared for it. Now, was it possible to prepare for everything? It depended. Like in some games, yeah, I could prepare a little bit better than others. It really is also going to depend on what cards are coming out of the deck, what townsfolk I hire, because each townsfolk have different abilities that you can use to help protect your wagons. Like when storms hit and they destroy your wagons, or the famine and things like that. And they also work well with the dice, and I also like the fact that you can combo them with different kinds of resources that you buy from the general store, right? So if you know that at some point raids are going to happen, if you see that revolver in there, you can buy a gun to help fend off raids. They're going to take money from you, but you're going to get 3 coins back. And I also like the idea that there was some specifically very powerful resource tokens, like the equipment you could buy. There were very powerful tokens in there that gave you a very great amount of power to protect you from certain kinds of things happening, but it didn't always protect you from every little thing that could happen, right? And it was only I think there's only one of each token in the game, and so if you got them, if you got the medicine, man, you were protected. At least one townsfolk's not getting a disease, right? If you have a revolver, you're the only one in there that's going to be able to protect yourself from raids, but at the same time, townsfolk can do some of the same things. I also like that the townsfolk cards, even if they were a one-time use, because you'd have those continuous powers, and then you have those one-time uses and things like that. Even if you got a one-time power off of it, at the bottom of your card, you're getting victory points for certain win conditions in the game. And I like that because it gives you an idea of a direction to go. And that ties in directly to the player powers, right? I like the fact that both sides, you got two-sided player boards here. And one of them is Standard Pioneer. One of your townsfolk's immune to disease. Starting resources are pretty much the same across the board. I like that. If you want to just play a beginning game, that's fun. But quite frankly, I don't really ever want to play that way again. I want to play with special powers. I like the idea that everybody starts off differently. And again, this special ability will tie in with certain townsfolk and also certain equipment to help me build my engine up more. This is a straight engine building game set in the Old West, and it really and truly feels like it, because you could have several wagons set up. I could have 3 or 4 wagons, and because I want the extra space, right? But at the same time, I might have a townsfolk that gives me victory points according to how many wagons I have. I might get 2 victory points per large wagon, and at the end of the game, that's going to be a lot of points, right? So you could literally, it really is a point salad. You can get victory points for pretty much anything you do in this game, right? Another thing that I liked was having the ability to change between a small wagon and a large wagon, right? And you only have a certain amount of area to keep things. And I like that because it really makes you strategize. It makes you go, all right, what do I have to do to make sure that I've got what I need? And do I need more wagons to keep more things, or am I going to have to give some things up? Loved that. Another thing I really liked about the game was the fact that at the end of each week, because you have 4 weeks in the game, you go across different kinds of towns in the game, and that's randomized pretty much every game. They always had needs, right? And you might have those needs, and so when you get into town, if you're willing to be able to fill those needs up, you're able to get so many different kinds of things, including favors and things like that. And I love the fact that the favor tokens, this is a big key for me. The favor tokens of the game, the more that you accumulated, the more victory points you got. But at the end of the game, to me, it had a slight Ticket to Ride-ish kind of feel, kind of like the longest train. Whoever had you could even say the most tickets, whoever had the most favor tokens, right, saved up, would get extra points at the end of the game. And that was just awesome, right? So that give you another thing to fight for. And it really is like, I say this jokingly, it's like a knife fight at the end of each week, each person trying to get all those requirements for the towns, because that sucker filled up your points fast. every single time we did it. And I was able to win some games that way, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, it really made you think deeply about what you were going to do, and it also made you think about what you were going to sacrifice. And I also can say I really enjoyed this at all player counts. I enjoyed higher player counts than lower, honestly. The higher it went, the better I enjoyed it, because, I mean, there were just more people at the table having fun with it. And everybody who's played it with me so far really enjoyed it. And we played it multiple times in a row. This is one of those type games that it's very simple to get into. I mean, granted, once you go past the first 2 weeks, usually everybody's got it down, right? It's very simple to get into, and it takes a lot of time to master, though. And granted, some of that's going to be randomized, but I like the idea also that with the dice, you can actually mitigate some of the issues with the dice that might come up. You know, you might not get what you want, but you can actually spend 3 coins and flip the die over to the type of side that you want it to be. And I really like that, because you have so many multi-uses for those dice in the game. And also, there is a chance to hate draft a little bit in this game. Now, it may not happen that often, because everybody's trying to make sure that they're good on their end for what they need. But, you know, if you don't choose, for example, if somebody decides not to choose that black die and just allows this disaster to hit, if you don't choose this black die, all 4 disasters move up by 1. Okay, and we had some situations where we were almost every disaster was sticking right there, right before they all hit, and somebody decided, uh-oh, I'm not going to take this black die because I'm prepared for it, but they're not. That does happen in the game, and it can be a little mean at times, but overall, like I said, it doesn't happen very often, because again, most people every round are trying to make sure they're completely careful and protected and prepared, right? Again, it's got that Oregon Trail feel to it. You have to resource manage in this game well. Now, if I had any other nitpicks about the game that I wasn't very happy about, I liked, because if you remember, if you watch the overview, you know that these player cards that come out, these townfolk cards, they have A, B, C, D, E decks, okay? And the cool thing is you can actually combine 2 of those decks at a time and mix them up. And each deck has its own like strengths and weaknesses. And I loved A, B, C, and I liked D, okay. But E deck, that was just recipe for chaos, right? I'll just give you an example. There were a lot of cards that would say roll a die, and then, you know, whatever the die facing says, lose 1 favor, or gain 1 favor, or gain 2 favors, right? Now, you may or may not like that. Some people might like that, because it's like a lottery at that point. You're rolling you're rolling your dice and trying to see if they're gonna, you know, if they're gonna get you something. If your dice don't roll the way you want, you're gonna get hurt. And hurt bad. And I can honestly say I was not a fan of that E deck, and I would highly recommend, unless you just like chaos in your game a lot more than what the game provides already, which is decent, I would not necessarily play with the E deck that much. But again, that's player preference. But that would be my one qualm about the game that I really didn't care for. But other than that, from the production quality to the thematic feel, because again, like I said, whenever somebody in my crew, my townsfolk crew, died from disease, I'm sitting here thinking back to the Oregon Trail game. You died of dysentery. Okay, how many people died from dysentery in those games? It happened all the time, right? Little Timmy died from dysentery. Oh no, you know, and there wasn't really anything you could do about it. Well, in this game, you can with the medicine and things like that. So this game is going on my shelf. Definitely keeping this game. Highly recommend it. I give this right now about an 8 out of 10. This one is going to hit my table quite a bit. And again, one of the best games I've played this year. And I'm just so excited about it. Again, I've been looking for a game that is Oregon Trail, the board game, or the dice game. And I know there was Oregon Trail, the card game, and I've heard about Oregon Trail, the other board game. But right now, this one is hitting on all cylinders for me. Go check it out. Again, try before you buy, but this game is amazing in my opinion, and I've really enjoyed it. And again, we have never had this game fall flat, and we've played it quite a few times in the past several weeks and just loved it every time. Anyway, thank you so much again. I'm Kaz, and thank you so much for watching Dice Odyssey. Have you gotten a chance to play Pioneer Days? Do you get the same vibe that I get? It's like an Oregon Trail style board game. Did you play Oregon Trail when you were a kid? Again, I spent many an hour wasting away playing that game, but it taught me a lot about resource management and things like that. Anyway, thanks again. You have a blessed day, and game away, partner.